Pro Football Focus NFL analyst, and we met Steve out at the Super Bowl. Steve, Tiki Tierney, what's happening, buddy? How you been?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's start with Kirk Cousins. Obviously, a lot of franchise tag stuff to get to, some draft stuff as well. What is there any resolution here between the team and the player where a long-term deal gets done for Kirk Cousins where he stays with the Redskins?
Well, I think there needs to be, because it's one of those things. I think they both really need each other. I don't know that Kirk Cousins is that guy that, goes to, say, a San Francisco and becomes the savior over there as much as, he likes Kyle Shanahan and he has that good relationship with the Shanahan, the system, all of that stuff. I think Kirk Cousins really was elevated by Washington's offense, the offensive line, the playmakers, Pierre Garcon, Deshaun Jackson, Jordan Reed. And I know some of those guys are moving on, but I just think the marriage needs to continue over there. So whether it's another awkward franchise tag or whether it's the long-term deal, the way the salary cap is right now, there's so much room. It's almost like guys who look overpaid are no longer overpaid 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So I think a resolution can and will happen in Washington.
I'm going to respectfully disagree in terms of a permanent resolution just based on the logistics here of the salary of the franchise tag. If they slap it on again a third year next year, which we know that they won't because it's just you can't manage that kind of money for one player, he's going to bounce. So why wouldn't you try to get back some value and engage the 49ers in a trade and get rid of him now and get something back rather than having him walk out the door, because you can't tag him again next year.
Because if you're Washington, Cousins, I don't think Cousins is a top 5 or even maybe a top 10 type of quarterback, but I think that you can move the ball with him. So I think you have to find a way to do that. You've got this pretty good offensive line in place. He does a good job distributing the ball. They've got good playmakers, a guy like Josh Doxson who's ready to take over for perhaps a departed Pierre Garcon. I think they're in a good spot right now, and I would rather rather than trying to start over completely at the QB position.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. What do we think it is?
But it's still only going to be for 1 year.
I know, but what do we think it is with Washington? Why hasn't this deal been done?
Well, I think because the initial franchise tag, and you have egos involved, and Kirk Cousins. It's funny how a $20 million payday for a year is an insult in the NFL the way it goes, but. Guys want to get locked up long term. That. I mean, that's just how it is. So I think Washington probably did the right thing, making it a prove it type deal, but they have to come to some sort of long term resolution soon, or else it will completely fall through.
All right, a few other things we want to get to. Steve Palazzolo with us here, Pro Football Focus analyst. Great website, really good tool for me. I used all season. He's with us here on Tiki and Tierney.
Now, Steve, there is I guess it could be a debate about the top picks in the draft this year. 2 defensive linemen are obviously at the top. Myles Garrett, Jonathan Allen from Alabama. Which one of these guys goes number 1? Which one could Cleveland use most?
I mean, both guys would be great because Cleveland's really weak up front, but I like Garrett. I just think the upside that he has, very productive already, great athleticism. I think he still has room to improve his strength and his power, but he's already been a dominant force for 3 straight years at Texas A&M, stepped right onto campus as a true freshman and was excellent. So I think there's still room to improve his game, and he's already an outstanding player. So I think it's Garrett. He has that ability to be a game-changing pass rusher and a much improved player against the run. So he's a 3-down star and potentially one of the best pass rushers in the entire league.
Now, you're heading out to the Combine now. What could happen either positively or negatively for either one of these guys?
Well, I mean, if Allen could show up, in that freakish type of area from a training standpoint, I think Garrett is expected to be a freak, run fast, show that quick 10-yard, show the change of direction. I think that's the most important for those pass rushers. I feel like Garrett's weight might be a little bit of a factor depending on, does he come in at a jacked up 270? Is he closer to 250? I think that's a little bit of a factor, but I think both guys are expected to test well and will probably still likely be in that top 5 range when all is said and done in Indy.
It seems, Steve, as if the kid from Texas Tech, the quarterback's getting a lot of buzz now as somebody who he's got a rocket. We know that. Looked like he's starting to, creep into the first round, and he looks like somebody who has a lot of upward mobility, provided he tests well. What are you hearing? What's the early word on him now, and what do you expect happens in the next couple of days with the way he's perceived?
Yeah, I think he shows up really well this weekend. He does have that cannon for an arm. He just has that great feel for the game, and I think that's one of those things that works for him and against him because he doesn't always look pretty. Doesn't always have his feet set when he throws. Doesn't always work within the flow of the system. Sometimes invites too much pressure upon himself. But he has that special magic, that ability to make plays inside the pocket, outside the pocket. He can, with the flick of the wrist, put the ball on a guy down the field. Now, again, with some of the good comes the bad, decision-making, that type of thing that he needs to tie up. But he's the guy I think teams are going to look as this incredibly moldable prospect that has this unteachable feel for the game, that ability to find open receivers and do it. I don't want to completely compare him to Brett Favre, but I've seen that comparison thrown around. I don't hate it. He has a little bit of that Favre-like magic, and I don't use that comp very often. So I think he's going to come out of this week, show off that big arm, and get even more hype as a potential first-round pick.
What's Mahomes' size? I mean, what do you expect him to check in at in terms of height and weight?
I think he's around that 6'2", 6'3". His dad was a major league pitcher. He's got that pedigree as well. He's got this stuff that doesn't really matter. The whole he could throw the ball 60 yards on two knees and all that fun stuff. That doesn't really matter, but you see it on the field. You see that arm strength on the field, his ability to zip the ball into tight windows or drive the ball down the field on the move. So I expect 6'3", maybe in the 215, 220 range. I don't think it's going to be a major issue.
Okay, it's good size. Good enough there as a starting point. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus analyst with us here on Tiki and Tierney.
Hey, Steve, let me get to some of these running backs. Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook. Which one do you think? Because it's a deep draft for backs. I mean, there's going to be some backs taken in the fourth round. It could turn out to be some players. But the top two are obviously the ones we're going to talk about. Who goes first, and what kind of impact do you think they're going to have in the league?
I'm looking at Dalvin Cook over Leonard Fournette for me. I just think Cook has this special playmaking ability, special angle-changing speed. And, a lot of times when the team's down in the fourth quarter, you look to your QB to make that big comeback like Tom Brady did in the Super Bowl. If you watch Florida State over the last 3 years, they're handing the ball off to Dalvin Cook, even when they had Jameis Winston. And he was leading comebacks because he has such great big play ability. I think that's going to translate at the next level, and he can really contribute in the passing game as well. So I think Dalvin is that special game-changing talent at the top. And that's not a knock on Fournette. I think he's an excellent prospect as well. I don't think he does as much in the passing game, and he's more of that downhill bruising type runner. I don't think he has as much wiggle. But at his best in 2015, his sophomore year, he did show the ability to run through tacklers, run around tacklers. So I think he'll translate well to the NFL, but maybe not as well as Cook, who I think has that game-changing three-down type of ability.
How much do you like Corey Davis from Western Michigan?
I like him a ton. I think he's right up there with Mike Williams of Clemson, different types of receivers where Williams has that big body that he likes to use down the field, possession-type guy. I look at Davis as probably the best route runner in the entire draft. Reminds me a little bit of Keenan Allen from San Diego, the ability to just get open at the short and intermediate range, do something after the catch. He averaged over 8 yards after the catch on every reception in the last 3 years. So he is a dynamic talent after the catch and before the catch. And he can make a few downfield catches as well. So I like Davis, especially in the right system. A team that's looking for probably an elite number 2 and a potential number 1 receiver.
Hey, Steve, we've seen the value that tight ends provide to good football squads. O.J. Howard from Alabama, but David Njoku from Miami. Which one do you prefer? I'm starting to think that I like Njoku better.
I just started watching Njoku a little bit more this morning just to leading into the combine, because I think those two guys are going to be they're going to be major stories. I think Njoku's going to test very well. We're going to come out of Indy with him getting maybe some top 20, at least first round type of hype. He does look like a wide receiver. Our analysts compared him a little bit to Jordan Reed of Washington, that ability to line up in the slot, line up out wide, create mismatches. Not a great blocker, but it's okay to not be unbelievable as an inline blocker in the NFL these days, as long as you're creating mismatches in the pass game, and that's what I think Njoku does. I think Howard will still show extremely well. He's a little bit more versatile, does a little bit more in the run game, and because he was so underused at Alabama, I think everybody thinks that there's this untapped potential with him as a guy that can stretch the seam and really be a weapon in the pass game. So I like both guys, but I do think hype-wise, I think Njoku comes out of Indianapolis with a lot of it because he runs like a wide receiver.
Interesting. Outside of Cam Robinson and probably even the kid from Utah who probably squeezes into the back end of the first round, is offensive line the weakest among the groups here, excluding quarterbacks? It seems like it's pretty thin this year on the O-line.
Yeah, it's very thin on the O-line, and I actually like the Wisconsin kid Ryan Ramczyk better than Cam Robinson and even Garrett Bowles from Utah. I think Ramczyk's a guy who's got 1 year of experience at the FBS level, stepped in at Wisconsin and was unbelievable in pass protection. He can make all the blocks in the run game. So I really like Ramczyk. I think he should be the first tackle off the board. There were a lot of questions with Cam Robinson. Certainly looks the part. Questions. He never really played like a top 5 or a top 10 pick, which is where his ceiling should be. And then Bowles is pushing 25 years old, which I don't know if people remember Danny Watkins and coming out of Baylor. He was 26, went in the first round and didn't last long in the league. I wonder if that has left a sour taste in the mouth of evaluators. But we're only talking about a handful of guys that are potential first-round picks at tackle, so certainly a weak class up front for the offensive line.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, man.
Steve, keep doing what you do. I'll keep clicking on and getting smarter when I do so. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus. Good work, brother. We'll talk to you soon.